Ladies and gentlemen, how do?
Hello and welcome to Mondo Street Social Club, a new podcast aimed at bringing creative minds together. Mondo Street is about sharing the creative process, discussing the highs and lows, and talking about how we cope when the creative genie eludes us. Pull up your comfy chair, put in your best headphones, and enjoy the next hour. Hi Billy, how are you today?
I'm very well, very excited, despite the fact the weather is minging outside. I don't know how it is where
Yeah.
you are.
It's starting to decline quicker than my my sleep pattern. It's
Oh, no.
really not good.
I was gonna say it's declining quicker than my career, I'd say, but I'm not thankfully, the way the rain was off this morning when I stopped by the graveyard to visit it, so
I
doing
don't
all
think
right.
that's true because we're actually going to start looking at your career, and you've just done the Fringe again. So, do you want to tell us a little bit
Yes.
about that experience?
Do you know I had a lovely Fringe this year? It was very busy. I know we'll probably get into it later, excuse me, but so previously, I had been I worked on a breakfast. I had a breakfast radio show, and had taken quite a big break off the Fringe, which doesn't make a lot of sense, because I actually had some money coming in the world of comedy, as people don't quite understand. I had some money coming in, and for some reason, I went, "Oh, now's the time to take to take time off from the Fringe," which doesn't make a lot of sense.
No.
But it was only in the last couple of years when I was still on the radio show. In fact, last year, and I need to go back to the Fringe. I've got a new show. Need to go back to the Fringe, and so this year was great because I was really busy, and I had a clear head. I was getting inverted brackets full night sleeps, which for me isn't long. I don't need a lot of sleep, but I do need sleep. And no, it was great this year. I was doing my work in progress show called I want to get this right because it changed this year, didn't it? Was it energetic this year? It was energetic this year. Was it energetic this year? I had two shows. Buzzing. It was buzzing this year.
Okay. so you were energetic, but the show was buzzing.
Yes, yeah. The thing is, I had two shows back to back, which kind of had similar names for some reason. I think I was going for a trilogy or a franchise. You know what I mean? I think that's what I was going for. So I did Buzzing this year, which was a work in progress, which was really good because I got to say bye-bye to a whole bunch of material that I've been doing for a while and kind of started blooding in new stuff. And when you get to do that for like 25 days, you really start getting an idea as to what you're kind of doing creatively. And I'm entering this kind of new, exciting sort of creative phase of my career, which I'm quite excited about. So I was doing that. I was doing a show called Show Me Your Tattoo, which was the world's first ever stand-up comedy improv chat tattoo show, which nobody really knew. It's been a show which I've done before and has always been really successful, but nobody really knew that this was kind of the farewell to that show. Like this was, I'm not going to do it again. It's done. We had a great run. It might take other forms, like it might become like a podcast or it might become a documentary or something, but that's it done. And then the rest of it, I was just having fun hosting a pick of the Fringe every day and doing a show called An Englishman, Irishman, and Scotsman. And surprisingly enough, I was the Scotsman in that show. So I had a great run at the Fringe this year, surrounded by friends, surrounded by people that I really enjoyed. And I think that's the key. I know that you've had Matt Reed on this, but it's I think the key is to kind of surround yourself with people like you kind of want to work with.
Totally.
And have fun as much as it is a job. Don't get me wrong, it is a job, and you're working really hard, which people don't believe. I think magicians like to believe, like, oh look, the magic's happening here, there it is, and comedians, we like to make you think, oh, this is the first time this has ever came out of my mouth, and that may be true with a lot of us, but there is a lot of work that goes into it, and you're away from your family for the best part of 30 days. But I had a great Fringe this year. Didn't get to see any shows this year, which is
Right, okay.
unlike me
Yeah.
because I normally get to go and see. I like to go and see people that do something completely different to what I do.
Mhm.
So I'm a big fan of going and seeing kind of diverse or female comics, dare I suggest, or comics from other backgrounds like LGBTQ plus comics,
Yeah.
because I think it's important to kind of have an understanding of the world around us. And I think one of the best ways of doing it is comedy. Or there's It's an act which I put Paul over in every podcast I'm on, but it's a comedian called Paul Curry from Belfast, and he is the weirdest, most out there guy you will ever meet in your life. And I'm a pretty weird dude, but this is something completely different. Like, it's kind of part clowning, it's part I just can't even. It's like the Muppet Show brought to life. It is part Dave. There's a bit of Dave Allen in there, a bit of Steve Martin in there. You can't describe it. I mean, this is a guy that'll have a bread fight at the end of his shows with the audience. He puts on panda hands,
Panda hands.
and his big thing is to panda hand. It's like I can't describe it. I can't do it justice, but you know something. If you ever actually see him, you won't know why you're laughing. You won't know why you're laughing. It's so I love to go and see stuff like that. So yeah, the Fringe was a hard shift this year, but I mean, I had probably the most fun and that I've had at the Fringe in years. I got to do some work with Dara O'Brien again this year, which was lovely. I hadn't worked with Dara since the Robot Wars days. I could talk about that later if you want. And I just had the best of times, which I don't think is what you're meant to say. Like, you know, like I came away like I think I was lucky. I think I was lucky because, like, hey, I've done a gig to one person, I've done a gig to two people, but every day I seem to have a pretty busy room and nice crowds. So, yeah, it was good. So coming out, getting excited. I mean, don't get me wrong. Then the Fringe ends, and you kind of go, "Oh no, I don't know what to do with myself." A bit, you know, a bit,
but you did though, because you went from the Fringe straight to America, didn't you?
Near enough, near enough.
Yeah.
I think the Fringe ended, and I think I was away gigging in Cardiff the week after, and then the weekend after that, I was away to Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Wow,
So
what a difference!
It sounds on paper. I think it sounds like, oh my god, this guy's career is on fire. I know that, and I'm just really bad at managing my diary. I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest.
But is Tulsa America's Cardiff?
No, I can't say. Do you know? I had no idea what to expect at Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm going to make this very clear. I had the first clue, and so it was a thing called Scott Fest I was doing over there. Which shout out to the guys at Scott Fest. They could not have looked after us better. Someone turns around and says to you, "Hey, listen, you're going to be doing stuff in between the bands on stage, and you're going to be doing something in the comedy tent." And if anyone, I'm sure if Matt Reed were on this right now, that sounds like that could be the kiss of death. That could be a nightmare. And oh my god, it was so much fun. Like I felt bad because my wife was going, "So how was it today?" And it's like, "Oh, it's hard work, sweetheart, hard work." But we share the same iCloud photo stream on our phone.
Oops.
So she's like, "So here's a picture of you so this is a video of you on the table in the main tent." It's like, what you don't know is, sweetheart, I am networking.
Yes,
I am networking.
Yeah. It's all for the career. It's all for the
career.
Yeah.
It all leads to something.
It all leads to the mortgage being paid off quicker.
Pretty much. So, yeah, and oh man, I've got a nice rep as being someone that says yes to anything, and Tulsa, Oklahoma was something I said yes to with no idea of how it was going. But oh man, I had a great fun, and I'm already booked to go back next year, so that's gonna be fun.
Yeah,
it's gonna be fun.
Yeah. I just wanted to pick up on something you said. Then you said that you said goodbye to some material.
Yeah.
How does that feel like? What does that feel like? Because obviously you've been working that material from inception through to it being crowd ready, and then refining it as you've been giving it out to the audience. What does it feel like when you say goodbye to it? Is it like a kid going off to university, or?
I think it's a little like that. I mean, I guess it's a never say never kind of a thing. Like, but I can't speak for other. I mean, I wish that I was like some of the comics, like I was able to be unbelievably scripted with that fabulous memory recall that so many comics seem to have. But I don't, and for me, it's like if I stop doing it for a while, chances are I will just forget it.
Right.
Like I will just, it's kind of, I don't feel the same about it, even if I did try and bring it back. So it is quite sad, but I think it also forces you to move forward a little. which it might not be as easy as you'd like to think it is. I mean, I see some comics, coming to the Fringe every year with like a brand new, spanking new hour that they've never told anyone, and they take the month to get that ready. And that used to be what the Fringe was about.
Yeah, yeah.
That used to be what the Fringe was. I mean, I've learned this from other comics, like the generation or two generations before me, that it used to be you basically turned up at Edinburgh with a blank page, and that was you working the show for a month. That was the show that got buzz. You be the awards or whatever, reviews, what have you, at the end, and that was the show you took on tour. But now people are turning up at the Fringe having like previewed it since. I mean, some people are going to start Edinburgh previews, I guarantee, before the end of the year for next
Next
year's
year.
show.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I understand. I mean, with the Fringe being so expensive and everything it's kind of means to people now, like I could get it. Like, I mean, there was a friend of mine who told me this year that he was going to be down 22 grand before he sold a ticket.
Jesus.
So it is like, and the argument is that that's an investment in your career. That's like paying to go, that's like a gym membership. Let's like blah blah blah. This will end up becoming something, hopefully. And in certain venues, because the Fringe is kind of stagnated in where it is. I don't need to get into that side of it, I'm sure, but um, 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 I think it's a quite important to always be kind of creatively moving forward a little bit, and that's why I think it's important to kind of chuck some stuff away. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's been stuff that people have told me back, and I went, "Yeah, that's good," and they went, "It's one of yours, you idiot." And it's like, is it? It's like I'd completely forgotten about it. Just so there's some stuff that you kind of leave back in the ether, and then one day you go, oh, actually, that might be the punchline. that might finally be the punchline to something I've just written now. So it can kind of go that way. Although in saying that, on Saturday night, I was doing a show, and there was a guy that came to see me, and he'd seen me years and years back, and he turned around and told me one of my jokes from like a decade ago,
Wow.
and I was horrified at it. I actually went, I don't think I'd say that now. I don't. So, and then I was really kind of like, I'd spent the rest of the night going like, was I just kind of like more fearless then, or is that a kind of just shitty joke that I wouldn't do now? It's hard. It's hard.
It's funny because if you do build up an audience or a following, that they
Yeah.
will recall because they'll choose their favorite jokes. Like a band, they'll choose their favorite song, and that will be part of their expectations of you on that night.
Yeah.
Tell me
I mean,
that.
I've heard that happen.
Yeah.
I've heard that happen. People bringing friends along to see an act with me or whoever, and then that act goes, "Oh, I better give them some different stuff." And then they go, "Hang on, you didn't do the bit about the parrot. Where's the bit about the parrot? That's like I told everyone about the bit about the parrot, and you didn't do the bit about the parrot." And you're like, "Oh, well, that bit's 5 years old." It's I've learned like high profile acts, really high profile acts. Like I've seen them do a show. Or like I've seen like their online show or their DVD, whatever you want to call it, Netflix. And then when they go and see live, they're doing a completely different show, and audiences don't seem to handle that very well, which is such a weird thing. Like I never thought about that in terms of music. I guess like here's a new album, but don't worry, we can chuck in a couple of old tracks. Like comedians don't do that.
No, I went to see Billy Joel a couple of years ago, and he did a section in the middle. It was a good 30 minutes of
Yeah.
his personal favorite songs.
Oh,
Now,
that's quite cool.
now his personal favorite songs might not necessarily be the audience's favorite songs,
I see.
and you felt the temperature in the room dip quite dramatically
Oh
because
wow.
everyone's expecting Uptown Girl or one of his.
We didn't start the fire.
Yeah, anything like that, you know. And the thing about being in a band or being a comedian is keeping that tempo, keeping that temperature up.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I went to see a guy called Bert Kreischer, who's an American comedian.
Well, I know. I know Bert. We follow each other on what used to be called Twitter.
Oh, Twitter or X.
I don't know if we're I don't know why.
Yeah.
I think we both quite like wrestling, so I think that's come up at some point, and he's followed me, and I've followed him.
Yeah,
So I think
brilliant,
that's
yeah.
it.
Yeah, well, he was doing his tour, which came through earlier this year, was part of
Yeah.
his new Netflix special. So
Yep.
he did a lot of new material in there, but still referenced back to some of his older material.
Of course.
Yeah, so he was quite good at crowd work at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've mentioned Robot Wars, you've mentioned wrestling, two big things for you. But how did you become Billy the Kid, not the kid, but a kid, to who you are now? What was it that drove you in the direction of comedy?
Me, I mean, I'm the youngest of three brothers, and comedy was always what kind of bonded us a wee bit. I mean, there's quite an age difference. Like, my brothers are 10 years older than me. So it's quite an age difference. And comedy was always kind of bonded us. So I'd always enjoyed comedy as grown up as even like a single figures kid. Do you know what I mean? Like it always been something I was interested in. But you're not meant to be like a comedian or performer when you're a little scruffy, chubby kid from the west coast of Scotland. You're not meant to do that. That's for upper class. That's for people that live in Glasgow. That's for people that go to theatre school. That's for blah 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 blah. And then you would see things like here we had like Absolutely and Scotch and Rye, and it would have been Alan Cummings and Forbes Mason. These are names that people might not know, but they're the backbone of kind of UK comedy at the time, and I'd always wanted to give it a go. Like, I thought stand-up was, I didn't know what stand-up was. I think a lot of kids growing up didn't really know what stand-up was. I mean, you'd see Billy Connolly, and you thought, oh, that's just what Billy Connolly does, and then you kind of got understanding of it in my teenage years, and I'd always wanted to give it a go. But again, you're not meant to do it. And I ended up kind of segueing slightly into acting. I'm not much of an actor. I'll be the first person. I feel bad. I'm actually doing myself out of some acting stuff probably. If something comes along, like I'm more than willing to do it. But I wouldn't say like I'm like a jobbing actor or anything, Well, I'm certainly not. If I've done acting, let's put it this way, for TV and stage, but and it was always comedy would keep coming up. That was always my kind of preferred genre at the time. And then literally went to college, went to uni, go and get a degree, go and do all these things, try and that's what you're meant to do, isn't it? You're meant to. All I knew is I didn't want to be. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I didn't want to be like my dad was a fencer and stuff, but my brothers had gone into kind of technical industries. Like one of them is like a director of IT for a couple of companies, and the other one's in charge of the tsunami alarm in New Zealand. So that's it's quite an important job.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the greatest. Even I was talking to him on the phone 2 nights ago, and I went, I do simplify completely what you do, Jason. You're in charge of the tsunami alarm. That's all I've got. I know that's the big job. Not that they weren't ever supportive or anything like that, but so I went into filmmaking. I was going to go into art and design, but I kind of pivoted because basically I think my mum died the last year in school, and I was kind of like, well, I'm going to go do something different. All I knew is I didn't want to stay in Ayrshire where I was born, or in Irvine. I didn't want to stay doing that. I didn't want to be working a factory, 2.5 kids, go to the pub every Friday night. Not that there's, and again, not there's anything wrong with that. No, there's anything wrong with that. But and if I had to do that in order to pay the bills, in order to get on to the next thing, then I'd be more than happy to. So like I said, I went to college, went to uni, and when I finished up, as many of us do, when you finish up and maybe you've not been amazing at networking, or you're not exactly sure what to do, I got a job in Blockbuster Video. That's what I did. I got a job in Blockbuster Video, and I thought I'll try and figure out what the next step is, and why I was. I think I ended up getting a job working as doing corporate videos, which is exciting. Got a job doing corporate videos, and I saw, and then it was actually my wife met a friend of hers that had done a stand-up comedy course, right? And she went, and well, she's gigging and she's crap, so you should do this course and maybe you'll get to do some gigs. Notice I didn't say the name.
Yeah,
Notice I didn't say the name of the lady
she's
it was.
gigging and she's crap. What?
Yeah, that's what she said.
Yeah.
That was what my wife said. I was like, oh, cool. I mean, the way I'd always looked at it was, I'll do the course on a Tuesday night. I'll have some fun. And there was a gig at the end of it. Now, I had no intentions of it being a career. Again, I didn't even know that world, really. I knew a little bit of the creative world through theater and some filmmaking, but I didn't really know, you know, I'd never really accepted that I might be my best asset because I always turn up. Uh, I'm I'm always very motivated. Like I never figured like, oh, maybe I should just do
And you always say
something
yes
on my
as
own.
well, even to going to Tulsa. So, you
Well, that's it.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And I usually am quite. I find myself very easy to deal with. um, did the course by a lady called Viv G, who as you might interview more, if you interview more comedians, if they're based in Scotland or have come through Scotland, they will know Viv G because her course has given birth to some big names in comedy. And Viv was great. There was a little group of us, and we did the graduation course at the end. The graduation, the showcase, the gig at the end, and it went really well. Now, this is what I can tell you. I don't do a fucking word of what I did in the first. Like it was, uh, oh my god, like it was weird. I wanted to be weird. I remember thinking like, I don't want to do. Oh, this is some men like football, women like shopping. Like, not again, not that I'm giving, and I know how precious comedians are. So if any watch this, I ain't talking about your set. I ain't talking about anybody's set. I'm just saying um, we can all be hack when we have to be. So let's just settle ourselves down. But it was about it was about fucking right. This is going to sound like the unfunniest thing in the world. So it was about cows that wanted to take over the world, and they were going to use celebrity skins to make it happen. That was my set.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Okay.
But it went well. Like I had a bit of stagecraft and it went well. And there was a guy that offered me a gig that night at the Tartan Rose in Paisley, right? And he said, "Come and do this gig tomorrow night," right? So I went, "I've arrived. I've arrived. This is it. They're already trying to sign me up for the Tartan Rose in Paisley. Yes." And the next night, I made every possible mistake you could make. I went, "All right." Despite the fact that it had taken me the best part of 3 months to come up with 5 minutes, I wrote a brand new set
Oh,
in a
God.
night, thinking that I'd be able to memorize it.
Oh, no.
I just, I died in my arse, but it was the best thing that could have happened because it was like, oh, this is hard. Oh, I like this. Like this is something to work on. I like this. So that was how I got into comedy. That is, you start networking, you get to meet people, you go and do the really tough and the shit gigs, like up in the arse end of the country. You're being booked to do 20 minutes when you've got seven. You know what I mean? You just like you end up going, oh shit, I've got to write like another. Like, see
And
some of that
wave
stuff
your
that
arms a
I
lot.
exactly
Yeah.
see some of that stuff that I just thought was crap. Like I'm gonna start making that better. This is like I'm gonna have to try. And it's so funny because I think about like those early years and go, man, I remember thinking I'd smash that gig, but I wonder if I actually did. Did I just survive and get a couple of big laughs? And I was quite lucky because there was a couple of other comics at the time that we kind of all supported each other because we all kind of started around about the same time. G. Lafferty, Mark Nelson, we're all three very different cats, very different people and going in very different directions. But I'd be indebted to them. I'm indebted to them, I have to say. And that was it. Just kind of the momentum started picking up a little bit, and I don't mean in terms of. I think a lot of new comics kind of go like, "Oh, I want to get my following. I want to get like, oh, I want to get people." And hey, there's nothing wrong with that at all. I don't think, but I wasn't kind of like that. I was just kind of like, let's just get some, more gigs in the diary and just learn and try and get better. It's the only thing. It's the same in music. Like, it's the only industry in the world where you will do shit for free just to try and get better.
Totally. Totally.
Like,
Yeah.
like if you start a new job, you ain't doing it for free for a couple of weeks to
No,
try
no,
and
no,
get
no, no.
yeah, to try and get better at it. And then when you think you've got it, that's when they start paying you and it goes up the better you get. Like that's just not a thing, but you get that in music.
Don't be giving the Tories ideas on how to get people
Oh,
into employment.
like honest to God, man.
Yeah. Or you can do 2 free weeks and then 10% of your normal salary on week 3. You're like, yeah, you can go.
Yeah, and we'll supplement your income with
Yeah.
like food bank vouchers and
Yeah, or gruel.
or gruel, exactly. So, but so and I just kind of didn't have a phone. I still had a day job, you know. I still had to make sure my bills were paid, and then I got a gig on a kids TV show. Right, so I was Fat Actor number 3. I know that's what it wasn't called, but Fat Actor number 3. So it was called Heads, which is quite funny because Heads has started appearing on TikTok recently,
Oh,
right?
gee.
And people are going, "Oh, I love this from my childhood," and I'm going, "I'm in this."
Yeah.
I'm in this, and it's like this is people's childhood. I'm fucking in this.
You little
And I've nearly done a
influencer, you little influencer.
yeah, I've nearly done a couple of videos going like, "This is me." This
You
is
should.
me.
You should. You know.
Because I'll tell you what. Well, people wouldn't know, and they'd probably think I'm talking shit. But so Heads was giant cutout celebrity faces. It was a sketch show. It's kind of like Bo Selector, but for kids.
All right. Okay.
As a way to kind of put it. So it's like big cutout, flat celebrity heads and the bodies and all that. And I got a job acting on that and writing on it as well. So I basically went, well, this is going to pay my bills for 6 months. Like, which were not a lot at the time. I hate breaking it to, especially where we are in 2023. It was enough to pay my bills. You know, it was enough. Like, our rent wasn't too bad. It was just me and my wife at the time. I think we were even house sharing. You know, and I just went, well, in terms of um, in terms of the what I was doing for a living, which I wasn't really enjoying, to be honest. My head was getting turned more and more by the creative industries again. It was just, you know, that's where and I just thought, screw it, man. I will take a shot. I'll take a shot. The bills are paid for 6 months. I'll take a shot and I'll just give up a day job. And hey, listen, if at the end of this 6 months, um, I've not been able to find a way of at least continuing to pay the bills, I'll get a job in a shop. I'll just get a job. That'll be fine. But I was lucky because after Heads, I got another TV show. So I was like, all right. So the bills are paid for another 6 months. That's cool. Well, listen, that means I'm going to have time to dedicate to trying to get better at comedy and trying to get out there. And as I did that, like, gigs would start kind of coming in a bit, and it was like, okay, this is a sustainable, at least this, as much as it can be, sustainable thing. Fuck it, I'm going to go full time.
Brilliant.
And that was about 15 years ago.
Wow.
This is the officially longest job I'm probably ever going to have, if the truth be told. And that is how I got into comedy, was by saying yes and kind of taking chances, you know. And if it ended tomorrow, all joking aside, I couldn't complain. I've got to do incredible things. I've got to gig in front of 10,000 people. I've got to go and do Tartan Week in New York. I've done TV shows. I've got to gig with some of my comedy heroes. It's even now it surprises me. Even when I do go, and trust me, there are plenty of professionals in all the creative industries that are in this same boat. I'll go, right, the diary is looking sparse for next year. Maybe this is the final wake up call of, okay, son, you're going to have to go and get a job, and you're going to have to, maybe now's the time. But then something will happen. Or you'll just get, that's why we had to give much love to our partners in the world of the creative arts, because it's like, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that, because like I say, I did a radio show for 6 years for Bauer, which was great, because that was, believe it or not, just at the end of another kind of like, maybe it's time to hang this up. Maybe it's time to just, stop doing this. Hey, do you want to go and do a radio show? This will help pay your bills. And it's like, oh yeah, that'd be great. So, and then that ended, and I was like, well, maybe this is such and such. And then a couple of gigs had come in, or you suddenly realized that, and I hate talking about money. I hate talking about specifics, but when you're on the kind of lower cusp, did I suggest, or wherever you are, you get a pot of money that comes in. Then you get an extra pot of money, and you go, oh, brilliant. But then so much of that money has to then go to the tax man, and then you have to spend expenses, and then you realize, oh, this original pot of money wasn't actually that bad. So then when something like that disappears, like the radio show, you suddenly go, oh, I'm actually all right. I'm actually, kind of okay. And it's just about getting that balance. So that's why we all keep gigging. That's why we all keep, hustling. And then you do pick up the phone, man. You do pick up the phone. Like next week, I'm doing warm up on Mrs. Brown's Boys Christmas special. And I'll level with you, that was not a phone call I saw coming.
Yeah, I can't imagine it was. I can't imagine it. Great gig, but I don't think you would have had it on you.
It wasn't. Well, it was like when I heard they were doing Robot Wars in Glasgow, and it was like, I'd be good doing the warm up for Robot Wars. Hello?
And is that what you actually did? You just picked up the phone and
you do, man. It's people. I think if I were to give any advice to anyone getting into creative industries, again in the comedy, it's a couple of things I've got to tell you that aren't nice, but then I'm going to tell you the nice things. First of all, yes, there are people out there that mean you harm. There's no two ways about it. There's going to be people bitching about you. There's going to be people backstabbing. There's going to be people, but do not invest your time in those things. Do not even think about it, because they're out with your control. You spend negative time worrying about these things. But even now, I remember a couple of during the Fringe, I'd opened a show in a big grandiose style and had a blast. And then, believe it or not, an act that was on after me then came and moaned, like really aggressively moaned about like you just left nothing. You just left nothing down to my arse. And it's kind of like, and at the time I was like, I meant nothing disrespectful. I wanted to go for the big start. Yeah. That's kind of what I was hired to do. And I felt really bad about it. But then I was also like, the last thing I wanted them thinking was that I was being disrespectful in any way. And then it was kind of like, maybe that's not my problem.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not my problem.
Up. They should be stepping their game
up. Yeah. But then it also went, if that is all anyone's got on me, that's fine. I won't do the lip sync battle or something stupid at the end of my set. I'll just end up being funny as fuck. And then I'll be interested to hear what the excuse is then. It's like, that's fine. That's fine. So one of the cool things to learn about that, kind of pivoting into the good stuff, is you will always be learning, and just open yourself up to it. You're going to have to ask yourself some brutal questions. Like, is this any good? Am I any good? What am I going to have to do? And I still consider myself to be learning and changing even now. The good thing is you're going to meet some fantastic people. You're going to have some wonderful times, whether it's music or acting or art or anything. You're going to meet some wonderful individuals. And, if I were to give you one mega piece of advice, is please enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Please take time to enjoy it, because I have been in places where I've been mega busy, where I've been getting up at 4 a.m. and doing a radio show, and then I've been running away and doing something else, and I've been running away, and I've got to do some awesome things, and I feel like I haven't had the time to enjoy them.
Yeah.
And I would say the cool thing of where I am now is I'm just enjoying myself, man. And I think it kind of comes across like, hey, I'm working hard, harder than I've ever been, maybe harder in some ways, but just taking that time to go, like, there you go. There's the going over and doing Scotfest. I remember sitting, getting ready to come home. We're in the airport in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I'm just looking at the window, smiling, and I keep thinking, like, man, the 18-year-old version of me, this would have blown his fucking mind.
Yeah.
So somebody saw you, reached out to you, and wanted to fly you to the other side of the planet. Where in that equation, you're flying to America to do a gig. Where in the equation is that a bad thing?
It's not, is it?
So it's I'm a big believer. I'm quite, without getting happy about it, the last couple of years I've become very happy about things, and I'm not a religious man at all or anything like that, but I'm very accountability and being grateful for what you've got in your life, because someone else looks upon your life with envious eyes. And if you think about the things that you're really grateful for, and if you imagine not having them, just imagine how much you'd crave them. Just imagine how much, like, if I didn't have comedy, if I didn't have, wrestling, if I didn't have a family, just how much I would crave those things. And they become so important. And it's kind of where I am. I would say to anyone, man, just be humble, look after yourself, and fucking man, just enjoy the ride. Just enjoy the ride.
I'm grateful because it's the fruit of your labour. Did you, when you were doing heads, did you ever look back at that graduation session you did and think, hang on, cows with celebrity skins isn't far away from heads, is it?
You know, it's I've got a rep as being quite diverse now, which is nice. So Billy can do pretty much any type of gig, and I can be very silly and I'm a weirdo, let's face it. Like I'm a fucking weirdo, but I'm more than happy to do certain material on a Saturday night to the crowd at the Glee or whatever. But it does kind of blow my mind a little bit, like all the stuff that I consider play is what kind of took me to heads and yeah, and I've got a lot of love for that show because it did actually make me go. And I got it at the time. I was writing on it with a friend of mine. It shows you how things go down, man. Because I was doing a gig at the Glasgow Comedy Festival, if I remember, and it wasn't like a solo show or anything. I think I was on the bill with other comics, and I can't remember what I did, but they said there was one joke he did that we went, that guy, let's get him in and see if he's up for a writing session or a writer's room edition, as it was at the time. So they kind of got you all under a room. They kind of got you spitballing ideas, and that's what got me the gig. And I'm never great at following up.
Yeah,
I have to say, I'm always kind of like, I wish I was quite. I mean, I don't need to tell you. It's like I wish I was quite good at being political and all that type of thing. I'd probably be on Saturday Night Telly, but if I could do that. But I just think I kind of accept these things and enjoy them. And those guys went right because what I pitched. I just remember pitching and having fun. And I ended up writing on the show with a buddy of mine's, which was great because then we got to bounce ideas off each other, and the heads went on to be pretty successful. If I remember, I think it did pretty well, and it's still. I'm told it can be occasionally repeated now, but because it's quite a pop culture thing, I don't think it's going to be repeated much in the future.
Well, I think everyone's going to be on YouTube. Looking at
well, they're going to be on YouTube checking it, but there's going to be a couple of the sketches that I know aren't going to make it.
Oh, right.
Because I know. So I don't think there was any Well, up until recently, there wasn't any characters that caused any issues.
Yeah. But cultural reference points move, don't they? All the time.
Well, that's it. And I mean, don't get me wrong. There's nothing offensive in anything. But needless to say, there was we wrote a whole bunch of characters, and I played a whole bunch of characters. That was the really weird thing. I don't think I acted in any of the sketches that I wrote. No, I did. I did an Ant and Dec one. So I was Jamie Oliver. I remember. Oh God, what the fuck else was I? I was Robbie Williams.
Oh Jesus.
I think I was Daniel Craig at one point as well. But some of the other characters we wrote for was Arnie's Vids. I remember Arnie's Vids. So the concept was, and this was kind of weird because Arnold Schwarzenegger was like the governor at the time. Yeah. I remember. Yeah. And so the concept of Arnie's Vids was that Arnold Schwarzenegger owned a video shop, and other celebrities would come in to try and rent their film, but he would just want to rent. He'd want you to just rent Terminator. Yeah, that was pretty much it. That was the concept. Although I will say it was one of the coolest things to write something and then turn up one day and go, oh, fuck me, there's the set. That's quite cool. I remember enjoying that. And then we wrote for, man, you wrote so many bloody sketches. Like you would write like 20 sketches per character. I think, and one recently was, it was Russell Brand. So I don't imagine we're going to be seeing those anytime soon.
No, I don't think you will. No.
Yes.
Not unless they're entered into evidence. But
yeah, well, thankfully, our sketches are completely absolved.
Of course.
Completely absolved, being at a kid show. In fact, it wasn't really about Russell Brand when you kind of think about it. It was just about this nonsense guy that would cause trouble and then end up getting a pie in the face or something.
And some could equate that to Mr. Brand.
Well, we could swap it to something else.
We could swap
it to something else.
So we all know that the adrenaline from being successful is addictive. Do you think that the fear of bombing is addictive as well? Do you think that that keeps you pushing towards the envelope of your game?
Oh God, yes. I mean, obviously, you want to make sure folk are entertained and have a good time.
Yeah.
I think anybody. I mean, I can't speak for other comics, but I think if anybody turns up and that isn't their their attitude, then fucking go and do something else, man. In terms of in bombing, you don't want to bomb.
Mm.
I think that's why it's important to kind of have like skills within your stand up. Like you get some people like they're just one liners guys, and not again, some of the best in the game are just one liner guys, they're very scripted. But if you're 5 minutes in and you're bombing and you're doing 25 minutes, what do you do? I mean, you guess you just kind of hope that your writing is what elevates it. And, I haven't got you now, but hopefully I'll get you, in 25, 20 minutes or something. So I think definitely the fear of wanting to move forward. I think it's why I probably do abandon stuff, because I go like, maybe I'll get sick of this. And you do. It sounds mad, like as improvisational as I can be on stage. These stuff that you do go, I'm kind of sick of this now. Like I think if you lose your luster for it, and I've seen comics, man, that have been doing the same stuff for 20 years, and you go, and I've seen ones and I've went, fucking hell, man, you look like you're so sick of this. And then I've seen other guys that look like they're saying it for the first time. And they're just like, and you're laughing and they go, oh, I've heard this bit, but this
Still
is
funny.
just one of my favorites, still funny to this day. But they find a way of getting it over with their audiences, like I'm sure they do practice. Even if it is like, they give themselves a good talking to before they go out,
You are funny. You are funny. Come
yeah,
on,
you are funny, or they're maybe, I don't know, they sit there with their notebook and they go, right, okay, we're going to do that bit tonight. And no, that didn't really work last night. So let's move that there and blah, blah, blah. They play chess. I mean, hell, it would be, I take my hats off to people that are very scripted in the respect of, this is my 20-minute set. It always smashes. I am not changing a fucking word. Good for you. Good for you. I can't do that. I wish I could. I can't do that. Because I think I would go, oh, that didn't work last night, and that's a new bit, or maybe it's time to drop that bit and slot something else in there. And I'm a big believer in, I do want you to think it's the first time I've ever said it. I'd probably say I don't think I'm shitting on myself here, but I think my performance probably elevates some of my stuff. But then that kind of makes it unique. I would say, like, no one's going to be able to go and do that joke. No one's going to be able to do that joke because it wouldn't work, because I've figured out how to do it, and I've figured out, how to perform to do it. Or I did it that one night and it just fucking smashed, and I went, right, okay, I know how to do that now. But if you hear another comic trying to do it, it's like, you won't get it. The joke won't work. Not that people do, of course, but aye, that would be my kind of take. I'd say the fear keeps you rolling forward, man. The fear keeps you rolling
How
forward.
do you get? Oh, sorry. What's the feedback like then? If you're in a small to medium room, because if you're in a band, you can see people singing along, and at some point, if you're successful enough, you can actually hear them over the PA system. But from a comedian, how far can you see into that crowd to judge how well you're doing between the laughs?
Oh well, I mean, it depends on the setup. No two gigs are the same. You might go to, clubs or theaters or venues that you've been at before, and they could have the lights so bright that you can't see beyond the second row. So you're gonna have to go with laughs, or you're gonna have to go with just the front row. But then there's likes of my the venue, the Beehive Inn on the Grass Market I was doing this year at the Fringe. I was doing my show at 2:45, and the place was fully lit. I could see every face. So my feedback is immediate. I mean, don't get me wrong, at a room of like 70 people, you could have like 65 of them rolling in the aisles and having a great time, but there's not one guy sits like that. Now, he might be enjoying it. He might be, because, I mean, I have to admit, I've only discovered, I'm a laugher, don't get me wrong, but I realized that I watch TV probably just like this, like anyone else, and are you not enjoying that? No, I'm just watching. That's how some people, same with music, that's how some people just kind of digest things. So never make an assumption. never make an assumption. Like I've done gigs or solo shows, and I've went, oh god, that did not feel fun at all. And then people went, fucking best show I've seen, fantastic, and you're like, what? What you could have shown it, and it's just how some people and the same with audiences. Like I remember I got to gig in the Netherlands a couple of times, and some people had told me like they can be very stoic, they can give you nothing, and I was like, that's what I was prepared for. And then I knew I had to slow down. I knew I had to be quite theatrical because that's just kind of how they do. And I think I just figured out how to play it because I then found the audiences to be loads of fun. But then I did one of the gigs over there where they were just and I thought I was dying on my arse. Like I literally thought like not getting any of this. And then right at the end, I went, anyway, I've been Billy Kirkwood, goodbye.
Wow.
And it was just like, what? And somebody said, like, I'm so sorry. At one point we laughed. And it's like, what? And they were like, oh, but they kind of equated, and it shows you different cultures, they kind of equated stand-up to theatre.
Oh, wow.
So they considered it to be more of a monologue because they'd seen like stand-ups doing it before, and that's just how they kind of thought that's how it was done. And it's like, oh fuck, I thought I was dying on my arse.
And I thought it would be rude to interrupt you at the end of each
I thought it'd be rude to interrupt you.
So they're like, keep going, keep going.
Yeah, you're doing great.
Yeah.
You're doing great. I mean, I'll wait for the big laugh. I'll do my big laughing at the end. And you're like,
wow,
what?
that must have been so hard to get your head around.
Oh my God, I can still remember that gig. So I'd done a couple in Netherlands that had just been really well, just like regular gigs, I would say. And then there was this one, and I still remember the sweat running down the back of my legs. That's how. Still remember. I assume it was sweat.
Yeah.
I assume it was sweat. Running down the back of my legs, just freaking out. But man, it's a big thing for me is trying to do different experiences. Like I think if it got to the point, like if somebody phoned up tomorrow and went, right, what about you do a residency at a comedy club 7 days a week, we'll pay you 150 quid a night, or we'll pay you £100 a night, and I could go, fuck, that is my bills paid. That is, I don't need to go and do any other gigs. Yeah, we'll sign you to a 10-year deal, you know, blah, blah, blah. But I quite like doing the different stuff. Like it's definitely a big thing when somebody goes, hey, do you want to go and do this, or do you want to go to this place you've never been before? And don't get me wrong, as I'm getting on in years, I can get a little sick of fucking traveling. I'm not.
No shit, really.
You know, 16 years, man, of just driving the fucking highways. I won't lie. I mean, even going to and going over to Tulsa, I won't lie, I missed my wife and kids like mad. It might not have been so bad because I kind of want them there with me, you know, even though it'd be a fucking nightmare. Like anyone out there, like imagine having a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 2-year-old just cutting about your work when you're trying to get about your day.
No.
You know, it would just be a nightmare. But yeah, as you get a little older, you kind of get a little sick of. I mean, don't get me wrong, man. It's part of the job. It means that I'm there in the mornings. I'm there to pick up my kids at 3:00, and my kids are actually owed 6 years worth of mornings because I was on the radio show and I was not here for 6 years, which was something that was agreed with my wife. In all fairness, like I still remember going all the way back and going like, "You okay with this? Because this means I am not here. Like I'm not like." Just around the corner. I'm not like I will not be here, and she agreed to that, and that was part of the reason why that all came to an end. The radio station that I was on were going to make some changes anyway, but what they didn't know, and I'm not speaking out of turn, what they didn't know is me and my wife had already had the chat.
Right, okay.
That this might be time to bring this into touch, and you can turn around and say mad things like, "Oh, but these debt and these bills and all that, but there's never going to be a right time."
No, and that's the same with a positive change, a negative change, something that challenges you completely to your core. There's never a good time to do that. It's the time that's right for you in your environment.
There's never, and again, like I was like years and years later, I wouldn't have had a qualm, and still don't have a qualm. Like, all right, I've got to go and get a job. I've got to go and do something to pay the bills. That's not bad. You know, it's part of it. And it's funny because I've discussed this with other full-time comedians, and they went, what if somebody came up to you and went, fucking hell, aren't you Billy Kirkwood now? You're stacking shelves in Tesco. It's like, yeah. Yeah. Which, could you piss off?
Please.
My
boss will come over and tell me off.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, people might take the piss. It's like, yeah, but they might take the piss from me walking down the street wearing a fucking the Tories are all cunts t-shirt. You know what I mean? It's like they've got realistically they've got plenty of ammo.
Where do I get those t-shirts from? Can we put the link on the podcast?
Well, don't make them anymore. There's a picture on. I don't even know if it's still up. I think it's on my Facebook, on my cover. So COVID was a big thing. Right? And that's kind of what I was talking about. Like, people had to get jobs and stuff during then. I was really lucky because I was doing the radio at the time, and again, nothing but love for the guys at Bauer at the time. That would have been so easy for them to go, well, we're getting rid of everyone and we're going to network everything. And they kept me on air and they kept food in my family's bellies and they kept the lights on. So, you know, nothing but love to them. Because I think you're meant to leave, like when there's a change at a radio station, I think you're meant to go away and be really bitter and like really twisted or something about it. And hey, listen, maybe I would have signed a contract for that other year if it had been offered, or I don't know. I don't think my wife would have let that happen, to be completely honest, because I was tired all the time and everything else. And I think I'd said, hey, I'd be up for a renewal, but I think it would come with that contract that got pushed in front of me. I don't think I would have been allowed to sign it. And that's kind of cool. But I think you're meant to, when you leave, you're meant to be dead, bitter, and twisted. And I think I was a little annoyed for a while, but then I'm kind of in a place now, and I'm like, it's all good, man.
It was all good. And
I think people get really angry at that though. I think it's like, aren't you meant to be fucking raging? It's like, it's part of life, man. What's the point? What's the point of living back there and worrying about that? You know, I've got to worry about what's going on now. You've only got so many fucking days, so I'd rather spend those, you know, having fun and just trying to move forward.
Well, you wouldn't be the person you are now, and your family wouldn't be the family they are now if you hadn't had that experience.
Completely, and you know, I've got avenues now. I mean, I'm still technically working, doing radio. There's a station in Edinburgh that I'm doing stuff from, which I get to record from here in my house, in my fucking house. I mean, don't get me wrong, the money's not as good. I won't lie, but
was that a plea for a raise then?
Well, you know, if they want to chuck another, you know, if they want to double it and pay me like 10 quid, that would be fantastic. That would be fantastic. 10 quid a month.
Whoa. Watch out, taxman will be after you for that. Yeah. So I had a guest on a couple months ago, a guy called, and I mentioned him in the last episode and threatened to mispronounce his name. So I'm going to mispronounce his name now, and it's Chris Tetrold Blay, and he's a children's author. And when I was talking to Chris,
right,
and Chris just looks like everybody else. He just looks like a normal guy, you know, whatever normal is these days. And when I was talking to him, he said that he had this huge love for American wrestling.
Oh,
right?
Really?
Like ginormous. And I'm like, okay, I didn't see that coming at all.
All right.
So is yours American wrestling? Is it WWE? And how?
Well, mine's is pro wrestling in all its forms, I have to say. I mean, I've got to give love to WWF, WWE as it was, because that's. I mean, I used to watch I'm old enough to just be on the tail end of British wrestling, like just there. Because I remember watching that. It might have been repeats for all I can remember, you know. But I remember watching it with my mum and really enjoying wrestling. Then I went to secondary school, and WWF, as it was at the time, I think it started showing on Sky TV. And we didn't have Sky TV. We were just a poor council telly kind of a family, you know. So started watching videos. And, you know, ironically, I think some of the first WWF I ever saw was on the end of a Robin Williams video. So it was a Robin Williams stand-up video, and it had Sergeant Slaughter versus Hulk Hogan from WrestleMania 7, which is 1991-ish. Somebody had taped off the TV. I was like, this is all right. what's this? What's this? And you kind of started making friends, and you got to go and watch, wrestling at their house, and blah 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 blah. And I just kind of came like an all round wrestling fan. I like I like the athleticism and
Yeah.
stuff that's on display. I love the storylines. I love the over the top characters, and I love the fact these parallels between it and comedy and creative arts as well.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's a creative art form. It's an insane creative art form. Don't get me wrong. I mean, people say things like they use fake. Is it fake? And it's like it's predetermined. But it's by no means fake. I mean, if you can find out a way, if you know a way that someone can throw themselves at the ground and not feel the impact and not get hurt, then I have a thousand wrestlers that want to talk to you today. And I mean, these guys learn how to protect themselves and what have you. But I know I love that. I like from All Japan Pro Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling over there. And I just kind of love wrestling in all its art forms, even its silly art forms. These companies like Shikara, and there was Dragon's Gate and some other ones, GCW. Sorry, I'm boring you with. Realize I'm just saying titles at you, But it's a rainbow. It's a full spectrum of different kind of storytelling and characters, and that's what I love about it, man. And I do have a lot of love for WWE and AEW and TNA and those guys. I work for a wrestling company here in Scotland called Insane Championship Wrestling. I am not a wrestler. I am a commentator, and I'm more than happy to stay there. I did a little bit of wrestling training after I'd already been commentating for like 5 years, just to go, hey, I'm just going to put my money where my mouth is, so no one could give me a hard time. And I was not bad. I was not bad, but I had no interest at all, which I still remember them going like, I mean, you could do this. And it's like, don't want to, don't want to. I quite
Yeah,
like,
it looks like something where somebody makes a little mistake and somebody ends up getting hurt quite badly, and
yeah, yeah. And I quite like my Friday and Saturday nights. I've already got the gig I
yeah,
like.
yeah. And you like
Do you know
and
what
you
I mean?
like your front teeth as well, so you might as
I
well
like my front
you might
teeth,
as well kick
man.
them in.
Might as well. Yeah, I've got a huge love for pro wrestling, a huge love. Even now, after all these years, I still get even if and the parallels between. I mean, I've got to work with some of my heroes as well. I got to tour the UK with Rowdy Roddy Piper
Seriously?
when he was. Yeah, when he was doing his, I'll show you the picture. I've got a signed photo up there. So he was doing like a spoken word tour, and what I can say about a lot of wrestlers, particularly guys from a certain generation, is they really learned how to talk and tell stories even on the microphone, whether you were an antagonist or put bums in seats, talk bums in seats. That used to be their job, That used to be their job. And Roddy had a fucking fantastic show. He had an absolutely fantastic show. And that was kind of weird working on that with him as well, because he would go and he got it. And it shows you, like, if somebody like Roddy Piper can still be learning and asking like a scum like me for advice, then I'm more than willing to still keep learning at this stage. And if he can do it, then I'll fucking learn to
Yeah,
do it.
and he was a legend, wasn't he? He
Um,
was a complete and utter legend.
he was, and I've got to say, an absolute gentleman. Like, just an absolute gentleman. Wouldn't fuck with him.
Oh,
Oh
no.
no, would not. Even when that man was pushing 60, not a fucking
No,
chance.
no, no, no.
And his stand-up show was fantastic. He's like, it really was. It was a story. He would tell a story going all the way from him getting into wrestling to having a lovely moment with Mr. T, of all people, at a Hall of Fame ceremony they had together. And I was very, very sad. Like, I was about a year later, he passed away. And I was very, very sad because people didn't get to see that show. Like he did the tour of the UK, and I think the plan was to do more with it in America. Like I mean, God, he probably did know Bert Kreischer as well. We talked about Bert earlier. I think there might be a connection there. Yeah, yeah, Jimmy Kimmel, and when he was in with the Comedy Store and stuff like that over there. And even then, that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like, even then, you go like, "Fuck!" There's like a fine line of connection. You really don't realize it. There's just that fine line. And me and Rod had become friends. I don't know why. I don't know why we became very friendly. And there was other comics on the tour. I think I think I was maybe just a bit more mouthy than a couple of other people. I think because I wasn't signing the checks
Yeah,
either,
yeah, yeah.
because I remember he had an agent at the time, and I threatened to thump him. I was gonna thump his agent. He was just an arsehole. It wasn't his full time agent in that respect. He was just like the agent for that tour. But I remember picking the spot on this guy's jacket where I was gonna pull him over a fucking table. I remember going, "You're fucking getting it right now." And then there was an incident in a car park in Newcastle where I told him he was fucking getting it. I might have used the phrase, "You do that again, you're not leaving this car park." and, and I'm not big and I'm not tough, but I was gonna fucking do it.
Okay, so and not to ask you,
But I would never do that out of disrespect for Mr. Piper.
yeah, I was gonna say,
And,
'cause he had a successful acting career as well, because he did
I
John Carpenter's They
very
Live,
much did.
which was a
He was in They Live. He was which he did in the same year as a movie called Hell Comes to Frogtown. It's on YouTube. Go and have a watch and enjoy yourself. You will not believe they both happened in the same year. And I think, like he turned up in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia a couple of times, which actually got me into that show. And I think I get the feeling he was about to make a comeback.
people always talk about him with an amazing fondness, which
Oh,
is something, because you look at his persona, you look at his wrestling persona,
yeah.
and then that there is and it's the same with all wrestlers, but there's a real person in there. But with Piper, there
Yeah.
was just that little something more.
He had a way to make you absolutely hate him, and a way to make you absolutely love him, to touch your heart, and then he was just watchable, man. Just watchable, and I learned a lot from him. And I forgot how I got into this, but yeah, I got to work with some heroes over the years. Mick Foley is another one people might know as Mankind, or Dude Love, if you like. Me and Mick are still friends to this day. Uh, William Regal, who people will know as well, a big British icon that wrestled for WWE, and he didn't wrestle for AEW, but very well known. He's another guy that the reason we bonded is because he's got a love of kind of like old school comedy, and I can be a wee bit of a comedy nerd. So, going back to like, end of the pier performers and like Blackpool, like the Grumbleweeds and all these type of guys. And he's friendly with a lot of these guys now, because that's where he started his craft. Was like, I think he was like 15 years old. And the way it was is they'd have a ring in Blackpool Pier. So they'd be doing the show that night, but they would have a ring in Blackpool Pier, and you could challenge a wrestler. If you could survive 3 minutes with a wrestler, maybe even less, then you got something. And these guys, like, and they do today, they know how to grapple. Like, why anyone in the right mind, like, whatever your opinion is of pro wrestling, why you would ever in your right mind challenge a wrestler or a grappler or a UFC fighter to a fight in the street is ridiculous,
Yeah.
because they have done hours of training. They know exactly how to tie you up in a fucking
They
knot if they
Yeah.
wanted. And that's what he would do. So he would do that, and then he'd piss off and watch all the entertainers and learn from them. Like, learn how to, get a crowd with a little look or a line or blah 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 blah. And it's quite sweet, actually, because William Regal refers to what he does as his act. And this is my act. This is what I do, and it's like, I just love that. I think that's very sweet as well. But yeah, there's a real parallel between wrestling and comedy and the creative
Yeah.
arts. It's
Have you
mad.
ever crossed the stream and written a joke about wrestling?
Yes, yes, quite a few times. So I do it for the ICW crowd, of course. But me and a gentleman called Chris Brooker actually used to do a show called I Am the Tag Team Champions, and we've done that. We're actually talking about bringing it back, which is, like I say, you kind of say goodbye to stuff in the kind of natural ethos of thing, but we always go like, because it's quite topical, you see. So it's like, I mean, we could have another crack at this. We could have and a clip of something we did recently turned up on TikTok again, and we were kind of like, would it be nice to do this again? I think it'd be nice to do this again. I mean, I don't know if there's money in it or anything, but it would be fun to work with Chris, who himself is an incredible comedian. Does coaching classes for comedians and like actually pro wrestlers, like promo classes and stuff. Be a great guest. Be a great guest. Did I suggest be a great guest? So yeah, I've written quite a few jokes over the years. Some of them I am so glad were for the live crowd and have never turned up anywhere else, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. So this episode's going out next Monday, which is the 2nd of October. Have you got any shows coming up that you want to plug?
Right. I think the best stuff to plug coming up, let me think, is I'm going to be back out touring at the end of the year. So I'm in Scotland quite a lot, so you can come and see me at Scotland. I'm in multiple venues across Scotland. But I'm going to be doing a new show, which is going to be the Glasgow Comedy Festival, and we're going to be doing fingers crossed, some tour dates across the UK. Best place is just to find me on social media, Billy Kirkwood Comedy, up a pop, or check out my podcast, Watch Bad Movies with Great Comedians. We rip apart some Hollywood clunkbusters, and we just have ourselves a good time there. So I've always got something going on. So if you're sick of what you're up to, then just check it out. I might be chucking something out there into the ether that you'll enjoy. All I want, mate, is just one thing to be a success. If I could have that, just like that's why I do so much. I just want one success,
and it will be. It will be.
And you'll never hear from me again.
All right,
I'm done. One success, and I'm done.
We'll never hear from him
as soon
again.
As I get my debt, soon as I get my debt paid off, or I win the lottery, I am a fucking ghost. I am completely gone. I'm not like these other dickheads that would hang around. I am fucking gone.
So Billy's GoFundMe is.
Listen, if you want to pay me 10 grand to fuck off, I am more than happy to do it. I am more than happy to do it.
The weirdest GoFundMe ever. 10 grand and I'll fuck off.
10 grand and I'll fuck. Do you know, I'm pretty sure there are plenty of comics in the circuit that
I tell you what, with how hard you guys work, I bet there are some that would take that.
Just like, oh yeah, we're just 10 grand and then he can, there we go, let's pay Kirkwood to fuck off. I'm on board, guys. I'm on board. Let's make this happen.
Billy, thank you very much for your time, sir. It's been
thank you.
Educational for me because I just want to absorb as much as I can from you guys, how you actually live and breathe, but also learn about the wrestling stuff as well. It's great, and you've given some really good advice to people that want to try new stuff. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your for your energy and for being so open. Thank you.
Thank you.